how many students graduate. So it is in our best interest, and in the students' best interest, and in the citizens of Ohio's best interest, that we look at prior learning assessment and utilize it to its fullest potential. So I am BGSU's representative to something called Prior Learning Assessment with a Purpose. This is out of the Board of Regents office. We did a big study last year, and we're now moving into an implementation phase, which I am sure will be met with much kicking and screaming from certain quarters of universities. So that's a statewide level initiative that's going on where there will be some significant changes in how we work with prior learning assessment coming within the next year.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, absolutely.
In regards to that, let's say Steve's a vet and Tammy's teaching a course, and for whatever reason, Steve's been in there doing all the work, and then he says to Tammy, I need it incomplete. I'm having a problem and I'm not gonna be able to finish. Can you give me an incomplete?
Okay.
Or he doesn't even say it, but he doesn't show up, and finally Tammy gets a hold of him and Steve says, I just can't do it right now, you know. Do vets or non-traditional students get extended time with the, you know, how they send you the incompletes and say, you know, do they get special consideration?
Right. Okay, so this is another whole area of what we do, and primarily me, out of my office, but is definitely something for you all to think about, and this is policy. So how does policy that is set broadly for all students impact differently, or does it, non-traditional, adult, transfer, and veterans? So this is one example where this is a really interesting phenomenon. It also, remember, policy is institutionally specific unless mandated or legislated by the state. So this is an institutional policy. You go to UT, it's going to be a different policy. You go to Owens, it's going to be a different policy. But here, the interesting answer is that most faculty do not know how to use incompletes, and they think that the deadline that you have 90 days after the end of the semester to complete an incomplete. I think it's 90, or is it 60? Might be 60.
I think it's 60.
I'm old enough now, I have to look stuff up.
I just received, I teach also, and I just received something
Right.
that we have to have it in by March.
March 1st.
Well, we have to have it in from the students, but we have an extra week to submit.
Right.
So it's submitted.
So it's
So
about
that would have been
60
up to
days.
60 days.
So that would have been for fall semester.
Right.
Okay, so in your example, instructor gives the incomplete, doesn't hear from the student, student doesn't do anything. 6 months later, they resurfaced, you know, in a vet's case, probably a medical or PTSD issue. And says, okay, I think I can do this. Some faculty will say, you missed the deadline, we're done. That is their prerogative to say, however, that is not set in stone. And you don't have to ask for an extension. What you do is you just change the incomplete, which is a permanent I, which is calculated as an F in the GPA. You do a grade change for them.
Really?
That's all you have to do.
Oh, God, that helps me out. I've got a situation right now. Seriously, I've got a student who will not respond to me in a timely manner, and I don't know what to do. And unfortunately, he is an ESL student, very poor English skills, and I don't know what to make of it.
And that student is probably doing what's the bury your head in the sand?
Ostrich?
Yes, that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hoping it'll just go away.
Right. Well,
Because they don't know,
That
what,
happens.
that's the other thing is, and I actually just worked with a student today, you don't know what you don't know, so you don't even know to ask because you don't know that you don't know. I know, that's tough, isn't it?
So you changed the grade to what? When you said you do a grade change,
When and if a student resurfaces, so incomplete, it's on the record, you know, semester's gone by, maybe 2 semesters have gone by,
that's
student resurfaces, the faculty member has the option at that point to say, yes, you know, here's the things that you need to do to finish this course. I'm willing to have you do that. The student does it. Then for the faculty member to make that work, they do a grade change form.
okay.
And then that changes
So
the I to a
semesters
grade.
later, they
Right,
can finish it. Do they have to
Right.
re-enroll in the course?
no.
Okay.
In fact, re-enrolling in the course, and
That would
this
be
is
easy.
where, this is one of those interesting things when you're on the opposite side, because I've been on both sides, faculty side and the other side. The other side is that sometimes faculty will just think they know what they're doing, sorry. And will do things like say, oh, you can't finish it this semester, no problem. Re-enroll next semester and make sure you're in my section and we'll let you finish there. Well, that's a repeat. That's not a, now you're paying tuition for that. You're not getting one, you know, and you get into repeat policies and you get into all kinds of craziness.
What, and given Steve's, he's the instructor of record, but he's a TA. So let's say the student resurfaces next spring. Steve isn't here, then what?
Well, then,
Or
hopefully
any
the
faculty
faculty
member.
member, department chair, can see
Take
it
care
through.
of it.
And sometimes it's just not possible.
Or you could just hire me.
There's always that.
Yeah, they don't know what to do with me.
And sometimes, you know, sometimes you can't, no matter how much you want to do, you can't fix things. We have things, there's all kinds of policies in place for veterans who have to leave because of termination. And, you know, there's all kinds of policies and procedures in place, but you know what? If you are, and this can happen to a vet, but think about, there are times when this could just be any student. You know, you get a phone call, you know, mom or dad's just been diagnosed, somebody's been in a car, I mean, you know, life stuff. And you don't think about the proper way to withdraw from the university. You go. And a year later, you're finally, okay, now I can try to fix this.
Well,
So,
that and the proper way to withdraw from the universities usually leave them a lot of money. And, you know, because you're backing out on a quote unquote a commitment. So, but whereby the incompletes, doing incompletes would,
well, okay, so let's
if you're
talk
past a
about,
certain date.
let's talk about incompletes. So some schools have a rule that the student has to be 70% complete or 80% complete or only missing the final exam or the final paper, which that narrows down what a faculty member can and can't do. When we have somebody who's deployed in February and they want to do incompletes in all their courses, I advise against that. I advise the student not to do that. I advise the faculty members not to agree to do that. There is way too much of the semester left to do. It is a recipe for disaster. I have never seen anybody be able to successfully do that.
Okay.
So I recommend at that point that you withdraw from the university. No harm, no foul, no Fs, no incompletes that change to Fs in your GPA. And you, when you're back, you move forward. It gets harder once you get into April. You know, have you really been doing everything all along the way? Or are you already behind and now you're, you know,
Catching up.
so part of the problem is that for students who maybe are going to want to do a retroactive withdrawal, if somebody if they go to one class but don't go to 4 others, and you get a grade in that one class, you cannot retroactively withdraw, and there's a whole retroactive withdrawal policy. But what I recommend is that because there are people like me that know these policies inside and out, and know which populations are best suited for which avenue. In most of the awareness training, just say, know there's a policy, don't feel like you have to memorize the ins and outs of it, call me.
This goes for all students though, right? It's not
Right,
just
this
the
is,
veteran.
no, this is
It's
across the board,
Okay.
absolutely.
Right,
Um,
policies.
Right,
Okay.
and, yes, there's different policies for withdrawing when you're being deployed, because
Right.
we pick up the cost of your books and that kind of stuff, because it's not your fault that you're being,
Right.
you know, but, yeah, so. But in the case where something happens in someone's family and they have to leave, you know, we have a policy in place to help people deal with that. Right down to appealing to only have to pay partial tuition.
I
So,
didn't know that.
yeah. There's timelines,
Yeah, well, of course.
but, yeah, lots of policy things. Okay, I have a question for you, transfer students. Do you think a transfer student should, as they're coming to the university, have the opportunity to be awarded scholarship money? Yes? Okay. Do you think a transfer student who's gonna get awarded a scholarship should have to go full-time to get the scholarship? Okay, I see some heads nodding yes. I see some people taking a deep breath, so we'll start with deep breath.
Me?
Yeah.
No,
No,
okay.
you.
Well, I mean, that's how it works, you know, most of the time in order to get a scholarship for, you know, graduate program, you have to be a full-time student. However, I think that if, you know, you are working full-time, you know, and you're trying to get your degree or something, I don't know, I don't think that you should have to, if you have, you know, the same academic knowledge as somebody, I mean, why can't you get a scholarship, you know, for that? And I think they do that because it's, I mean, that could go on, if you're a part-time student, that could go on for a while, you know, but.
Right. So think about it from an undergraduate perspective. Let's have somebody think about it from, go ahead.
Okay, I guess from an
Yeah.
undergraduate perspective,
Right.
I feel like it could still be different. I mean, it depends. You stated that you don't know if somebody's a non-traditional student. So if you have some side of outside, you know, if you have a family, maybe when you're an undergraduate, or if you do have to have a full-time job when you're 18 or whatever.
So
I don't know.
So
I
is that,
work-
is what you're saying based on need, like a regular scholarship?
Because I guess, for example, for me, I started my college career at a community college because I didn't, you know, I was paying for everything myself. I worked 30 hours a week. I was at Owens, I was on the cheerleading team, and I did my coursework, and it was a lot on my plate. I feel like I worked a lot harder than some of the people that I lived with.
Show up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so, you know, and I feel like I deserved the scholarship for how hard that I was working, you know, but that's not really how it works. I don't know. But it would have been a lot easier if I could have gone part-time. I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do. There was the thing about, for FAFSA, if you, I don't know, you didn't. like,
You have to
didn't-
enroll in so many credits in order
Yeah.
to get financial aid.
Right, yeah, you have to do that, and then also there is, if you take a semester off, then you can't take a semester off, otherwise you're screwed, so,
It's
it was
called,
just, you know,
forward degree progress.
yeah, I mean, it was just really, I don't know, it was tough, I ended up struggling, I had other outside factors, I didn't know that you could get it incomplete at the time, yeah.
Owens is one of the places that has the 80% rule. You had to be 80%
Oh,
complete
80% complete.
before a faculty member can award it.
Right, and I could have done that, it was at the end of my courses, I had A's in both my courses, and I lost one of my friends to, one of my best friends to leukemia, and that was,
That's hard.
I mean, I was 18, it was my first semester of college, I just didn't know what I was doing, so
Like, you didn't know what you didn't know.
I didn't
so
know
you
what I didn't know.
to ask. See?
Yeah, so
There's
I
an
just
example.
stopped attending the classes and failed. Ouch.
I look at undergrads and I think about, and I don't know if you guys do, but I think about whether or not they're a dependent or they're an independent student. You know, if you're going to Northwest State or Rhodes College or whatever, and you're an independent student at age 18 or 19, and you want to transfer to BG, then what you're saying to BG is, I'm taking care of this myself. But a dependent student who's transferring may have resources, may not,
Mhm.
but may have resources, but has not, does not demonstrate unless they file a FAFSA for academic aid. So they automatically get transfer money. And I was selling that last year, you know, when we were doing those things with Owens and Tara, and Northwest State, about, hey, you guys can get money from BG because you're transferring. You know, lots of kids would like this money. And there was one student who transferred here, I swear she's in college to avoid getting a job. She's in her 40s,
Is her
And-
job.
what?
She's paying
And she's not a good
job.
student, but she will argue every single point. And I was her advisor, and a teacher came to me and said, what is up with this? You know, she's taking a 1,000 level class, new major, 1,000 level class.
Well, financial aids will, there's a maximum number of
Mhm.
semesters available, so that will stop.
Well, and
Yes.
what she said to me
She'll run
was,
money.
I already maxed out at Owens. So I
Right.
came here.
Take a credit card.
So she just jumps around. That's exactly,
Oh my God.
And I thought, and
They
we're-
take,
them
you
too,
have 150%, so if if a degree is supposed to take 8 semesters, you know, then you have 12 semesters or months or however they calculate it. I am not a financial aid expert, I have to say that right up front. I know just enough to be really, really dangerous, and I have phone numbers on speed dial. So, but there have been changes to stop people from being a professional student.
yeah, I'd never met anybody
Unfortunately,
like that.
okay, unfortunately, what it does is it hurts the transfer student who maybe straight out of high school earned an associate degree in whatever. They went off, they did something else, they came back, they earned a second associate degree, and now they want the bachelor's degree. They will absolutely, no questions, run out of financial aid. They will have maxed out. Because the time clock, when they made this change 2 years ago, we thought that it would be from that point going forward, and the feds in their infinite wisdom made it retroactive to the beginning of financial aid. And we had people who, that semester, bam, no more financial aid, which is really very unfortunate for somebody who had done all the right stuff. How were they supposed to know that earning 2 associate degrees over 30 years was gonna hurt them when it came time to earn a bachelor's degree? So these are some of the really interesting nuances. The reason I asked you the scholarship question, and I think maybe we'll get one more response over here, is that that's one of the things that we've been working on this year. I had the opportunity to spend some time with President Mazie and described to her that our current, at the time, transfer scholarships disadvantaged a group of students. If you were transferring here from another 4-year school, not one penny was available in a transfer scholarship. Now, you could apply to any number of the, you know, the searchable scholarship engine, you could go on that and apply for scholarships, but what was called the transfer excellence grants were only available to Phi Theta Kappa, which is honorary 2-year society, associate degree holders, or anyone who came from an Ohio community college or technical college. Okay. So, but 10 years ago, we didn't even have that. So we were happy to get that. And then, so what I was saying was, what can we do for transfer students who are coming without an associate degree, maybe from out of state or from another 4-year school? Um, We also in the past did give the Transfer Excellence Awards to part-time students. You had to be enrolled for 6 or more hours. The thought at the time when we made that decision was, we wanted to be able to let people dip their toe in the water, see if they could swim, give them a little incentive to try it out. We won't hit you with the full tuition this first semester. But as you all have heard, we're in, the university, all institutions are in a tremendous budget deficit, and there just is not enough money to go around. So one of the things that we have unfortunately looked at is not giving the award to part-time students. It's not a huge amount of money, so I am seeking input on this, so that's why I thought I would ask you all, as people that are working with the population who is most likely to be attending part-time. Your typical traditional straight from high school student usually is a full-time student, unless partway through the semester they keep dropping classes. We don't really count them as part-time. They might end up that way, but that's not how they start. Yes, and we all know and love them very well, but they drop classes like flies. But, the person like me, my optimal when I was an undergrad, single mom, 2 kids, had to take them, hither and yon and all that stuff. My optimal number that I did the best at was 9. And then at the very end, I needed to be done, so I cranked it up to 15 and then 18, and that was crazy. And then I was a grad student and had to have 12 grad hours, and that was a whole new world. Obviously, it worked out, but I would love for our part-time students, transfer students, to at least get, even if it's half an award. But I just wondered what you guys thought. You have a thought?
I mean, I don't know. I guess I could see why you would look at cutting that money. I mean, I would think that the full-time, I'm not a transfer student. I've been here all 4 years, but I would think that in my eyes, and this could be wrong or not, the full-time would get the scholarships over those part-time people because they're not paying as much tuition and they're, not to say they don't need that help,
Right,
but I
right.
can definitely understand why you would cut that first before everything.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Don't you need to be asking where the money is better spent? I mean, I know that sounds an awful way to put it, but.
No, it's actually it is definitely part of the conversation.
If we find that a certain class of part-time student is more likely to ultimately graduate, then you put your resources there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is
I think
exactly where I'm going. You hit it, you absolutely identified the piece. So as much as I want to champion the person who has not been to college before and they want to come and take 2 classes and dip their toe in the water, see what college life is like at 45, or the person who is, let's say, wanting to do the degree completion program in fire administration, and this is going to make all the difference in the world between them being able to pursue this degree completion program, which, by the way, has a 90% retention and graduation rate.
Which gives us more money from the state.
Right,
Yeah.
because they're going to
That's what I
graduate.
was
Now,
thinking.
they're not going to graduate as fast as perhaps, you did when you came here from Owens, because they're only going part-time. But in the larger overall picture, if we have to slice and dice and identify populations, so that's part of what sort of all of this, you've had almost a 2-hour data dump here. And not one PowerPoint slide yet, so, But that's what this is about. That's truly what it's, a little bit to the, I don't know where they get left somewhere. And this is the readmit population. This is a population of student who came here once upon a time, often straight out of high school. They may have had academic issues and stopped out. They may have had personal issues and stopped out, financial issues and stopped out. For whatever reason, they were gone. And I'm not talking about the one that's gone for a semester or two. I'm talking about the population that's gone 5 years, 10 years, 40 years.
30.
Well, not you 40, I meant in the general scheme of things. The most I've ever had out was in the 50 years out.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
This population coming back is unique. There is no money to support them. There are very few policies that actually are to their benefit. And that's when I talk about comprehensive, holistic, leave no stone unturned. This is the population that we really learn a lot from in how to maybe mitigate some of the challenges and barriers for the other populations along the way. So I'll leave you with my favorite story from this population is a guy who came back, I think it was 39 years later. And back in the 60s, he was a Freddie Falcon. He's a Flame, met his wife here. They got married. She graduated. He didn't quite. They went off, left the state. Beautiful, fantastic, successful careers, but he never finished his degree. And he was able to come back. We worked out as I call it, a package. We worked out a program, and we were able to get him graduated. And of course, he had to do the work. He walked across the stage to get his diploma, and he had the Freddie shoes on.
Very cool.
Yeah, so if you're ever in my office, there is a picture of him, and I get teary-eyed every time I mention it. But he's, the entire audience, all the students stood up and applauded him. And I was behind him with tears running down my face too.
We had students graduate from high school who left at World War II
Yeah,
to go and serve in the military, and then came back and they were 70, 75, 80 years old. And they marched with the kids.
yeah.
And we had one in a wheelchair, and when she got close, when they called, they were in a line, and when she got up there, she had two of the high school kids hold her wheelchair. She stood up and walked up to get her diploma, and she was shaking. I was afraid to give her the diploma.
Oh my goodness.
So I kind of walked her back, sat her in the wheelchair, and then the kids took her off. But she made these arrangements so that she could graduate. I just think that's incredible.
So I have some of the highlights that are related to the things that you wanted to know about: student population, characteristics, types of programs, and a little bit about challenges and barriers. And then I will quickly, because most of this is on the handout, so I'm just going to scroll through here. There's a list of the populations we work with, particularly out of my office, the returning or readmit that we just talked about. A couple things that we do in the way of programming that I didn't mention before. We know that this population does not necessarily able to seek out services 8 to 5. So our office is open till 7 on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. We also have an affiliate or liaison concept. So one day a week, for example, we have a rep from the VA in our office. Tomorrow we'll have a rep from the Career Center there. So we bring variety of services to our offices so that our population can access these students. And I think that those are incredibly helpful to our populations. We also work with all the online students and provide online services or by phone for those students who, just because they live here in town, doesn't mean they can necessarily get to campus. So it doesn't matter where they are, we will work with those students online. I talked about some of the programs we offer, some of the partnerships that we have, and then these are, and I'll make sure you get the PowerPoint because the links are not on the handout. But anybody who wants to see this, this is the testimonials, stories by students. This is called Kids, Have You Seen My Backpack? And other non-traditional inspirational stories. So I have that if anybody wants to take a look at it. Kale, huge resources there. ACE, which is both experiential learning, but also has something called the Military Toolkit. So those are some resources. Evolution is the article that I mentioned, and you can click on that link and get exactly to that. Also other organizations that have themes or threads within that are for this population, ACPA, NASPA, and NACADA, which is the advising one. And that's how to do 17 PowerPoint slides fast.
Yes!
So I hope that helps, and I'll hang around if anybody wants to ask me questions.
Thank you.
How about a round of applause for Dr. Henry? Thank you. I just want to, I did put a link up for your speaker stuff, and I know there's an official title for the fourth. I trip all over it. I'm sorry.
Not a problem.
But she's going to talk to us tonight about that.
Yeah. So I'm delighted to be here, and I love coming into the classroom. I don't get to do it often enough, so I am yours for as long as you want to talk with me tonight and ask questions and talk about concerns or ideas, or why do we do this, why don't we do that. And pretty extensive experience. And the official title of my office is Non-Traditional and Transfer Student Services. We could make the name longer because we probably really want to reflect the work that we do with veterans and military. And so that will be something that I am more than ready to talk about tonight. I myself came up as I was a non-traditional student. When I was growing up, my parents saved to send my brother to college, but they didn't really think that that was necessary to do for a girl. My brother drives a hay truck, I have a PhD. What can I say? I think he really likes driving a hay truck, but there's always there's some really interesting generational things that I think come into play oftentimes. Non-traditional, I was a single mom raising two girls, moved around the country a lot, so when we're doing transfer orientation, a couple members of the staff of NTSS like to tell students that it doesn't matter how many schools you've been at, because after all, Dr. Henry went to 7 undergraduate schools in pursuit of her degree. So I have a little bit of experience, both personally and obviously professionally. I started out to be a social studies teacher, and somewhere along the way I took a left turn and a right turn and another left turn, and have ended up with both community college experience and 4-year experience. I was never went through the complete ranks with the student teaching and everything, but I did substitute in a junior high, and I think that that's worth its weight in gold. So, so I've taught at both the community college and university, and both undergrad and grad, and so I have some experience. But the one thing that I always do like to say, I don't know if anyone in the room has military experience or family members that do, but I did not have that honor. But I am very proud of the work that we do here in supporting our military and veterans. So But I like everybody to know that I don't have that personal experience, because it really does add a different dynamic to relationships and working with veterans when you have actually served, so. And one of the things that you'll also notice, and I do this at, whether it's at orientations or whatever, we don't ask for a show of hands or anything like that, because sometimes people are perhaps not always comfortable sharing that they've served or are serving. Depends on the context and things. So what you'll hear me do a lot in larger public settings is to just, all I'll say is, would everyone please join me in a round of applause supporting those who have served. And that way, anyone in the room knows that we have a level of support, but I'm not asking somebody to, self-identify or have to make that choice. Is this a place where I feel safe? So we do some of those things. I know that you had some homework assignments. I think you did maybe a little bit of research. And I do have some PowerPoint slides here that we can go through, generally talking about the characteristics of the populations, some of the things that we do here at BG, some best practices, maybe some resources, and we can certainly get to those. But I really would like to know if there are some areas that, as you were out there researching, you had burning questions about, if you've had some experiences as non-traditional students here at BGSU, or you know of someone who has either had a great experience and you want to talk about that, or maybe there were some challenges, barriers, problems, we can certainly talk about that. I do want to make sure that I have some time to add a little bit, not necessarily on the PowerPoint, but there are some initiatives and some things that are changing very quickly here at the university that I'm involved with. And so I might be asking for just a little bit of comments and suggestions from you all. But there's also some things happening at the statewide level that I'm very strongly involved in. And one thing that I literally just found out about on Friday, that's so big I'm not even sure I've wrapped my head around it quite yet, what we're going to be doing. But I think that it is really going to make some big differences, both here in the state, but also I think we're going to be a leader in the nation. So some of those things are very exciting. Talking about transfer students, I can talk a little bit about sort of the history of what we have done as a state in developing what's called the Ohio Transfer Module. We also have something called TAGs, Transfer Assurance Guides. And we're actually a leader in the nation, which sometimes when you're plugging away at an institution, you don't realize maybe sometimes what you think is so slow. Man, we should have been doing this 10 years ago. You don't realize what a leader some of the things are that we're doing. So can also talk about scholarships and maybe get a little input from you all on this idea of transfer scholarships and maybe what they've been, what they haven't been, what they could be. So I really hope this can be sort of interactive and dynamic. So how would you like to start? What kind of research did you do? What kinds of burning questions did you come up with?
I guess the question that I had is, does Bowling Green have specific programs that they offer to non-traditional students or adult learners? Is there specific, programs for those learners so that they can be more?
I think that's a great question, because there's an awful lot of talk nationally. In fact, at the end of the PowerPoint, there is a link to a newsletter about non-traditional or adult learners that I literally got this afternoon. It's the first half of a piece, and the little weekly thing is called, I think it's called Evolution, and it has 3 L's in the middle of it. Cute. Okay. But there's workforce development articles. I don't know if any of you have ever seen this. Maybe you're probably a subscriber to it. Well, today's was about this opening up of the non-traditional population. And in that article, today they were saying that there's 36 million American adults, and let's define those as people 25 and older. Let's use the traditional definition, 25 and older, that have college credits but have no college degree. 16 million who have associate's degree but no bachelor. Well, 36 and whatever it was, it adds up to 40 million people. That's a huge population. And part of what's happened here in the state of Ohio in the last couple of years is all of a sudden our community colleges, who had been growing by leaps and bounds, up the road, Owens, had over 20,000 students. Now, were those part-time, full-time? Were those stop in and take one class? Were they workforce development? I'm not sure how they were counting their 20,000 students. They now have just over 10. So however they were counting, they've taken a huge hit, as have all of the other community colleges in the state of Ohio. Now, transfer students don't necessarily just come, and non-traditional students don't just come from community colleges. But we hear nationally about this huge, great big population that's out there, and yet when we drill down to the question you're asking, what do we do here? Well, we have people out at community colleges, so we have actual advisors, academic advisors who are out at community colleges who work with transfer students who might be traditional age, who might be non-traditional, to help them pre-plan and seamlessly transfer to Bowling Green.
Okay.
So that's one piece. We do a breakout session at some of the incoming student orientation days. That's more geared to the transfer / non-traditional, kind of mash them together. And I want to come back to that definition of transfer student because they're not always non-traditional or adult learners.
Mhm.
You know, our largest group is less than 25. So that idea that if you're a transfer student, well, you must also be an adult learner. If you're using the definition of 25 and older, then that falls apart for us, not for all institutions. We do opening weekend, a special opening weekend event, because frankly, if you're 28, whether you're single, married, have kids, don't have kids, work full-time, come to school full-time, probably doing the traditional opening weekend is going to be very uncomfortable. I mean, you might appreciate Freddie and Frida. You might want to learn the words to I Ziggy Zumba, but you probably don't want to do it with a group of 18-year-olds. It just
imagining
really,
that. Yeah.
and you know, I've heard so many comments from people who thought that they were required to go to the traditional stuff, and then they either get told, oh, I'm sorry, parents aren't allowed to attend. It's like, oh my goodness, because they're the student.
Yeah.
So we do have a separate opening weekend event, and we also do a pre-session for military members, so that we can, because there's just some other additional stuff that we need to do to help with that transition. Our population of true non-traditional students here at BG has been growing. For the longest time, it stayed right around, it might dip down towards 1,000, then it might scooch up towards 12, then it would come back down. And it's been inching up slowly, but it's not a huge population. And other than sorting people by age, there's that other aspect of non-traditional that we can't sort for. We don't know who's 20 but is a parent, or is married, or is taking care of elderly parents, or raising their siblings, or who in any way in their own mind identifies as being non-traditional. And so those folks have to self-select to seek us out, and that's unfortunate. And we would love to come up with ways to identify folks and connect them with us in better ways, but haven't thought of it yet. Go ahead.
Oh, I didn't know if you were finished with that
Yeah,
question.
well, several other things that we do programmatically, we do special training for all of the tutors over in the Learning Commons, because, a lot of the folks that work in a tutoring role over in the Learning Commons tend to be of a more traditional population, but not always. A lot of our non-traditional students, once they get here, transition, get going and are doing well, will seek that out as a job, particularly if they're planning on a career in education. And so so sometimes we have non-traditional tutors, which is, it's an added benefit. But otherwise, we also do a training session just to help folks understand that, okay, you might be 20 and you're a math tutor, but if you're using all kinds of pop culture references and speaking slang, that the 40-year-old who's trying to get help with algebra just doesn't have a clue what you're talking about. And frankly, we have to tell them to speak slower, because at our age, sometimes we can't understand because they talk too fast. So we do some real simple things like that in tutor training. We have tried off and on to, when there's been some interest expressed by students, to have a student group. And there is usually a small group that is interested, but no one wants to take the reins and actually lead it and start the club and schedule the meetings and come up with topics and things. So we do a lot with online resources, but does that help?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
DJ had us look up the different marketing strategies and stuff that colleges do in order to attract these non-traditional students, and I just find that to be really hard to research, but at least I found almost nothing on it. So I guess my question is how does BGSU do that, or / how do other universities or community colleges even do that?
I think that that's a really, and I saw that that was one of the things that you had looked at. I think probably researching it's hard. I think figuring out what actually reaches people is hard. So number one, I brought y'all a pen. There's some of our marketing at BG. Of course, having intuitive websites where people might actually be able to, from a main page, figure out what's a click that I'm going to make that's going to take me to information for people like me. It's usually not that easy. At times, our website has been better or worse. I don't know what you all think about the new website. I'm still trying to adapt. So that's one of the things to think about as far as in marketing. Other marketing things that you can do to reach non-traditional is to actually, and we do a lot of this, I have recruiters and or academic advisors who will go to large corporations, will often have benefit fairs, and if a benefit is an educational stipend, either for themselves or for the dependents, we will have someone go to those. We will occasionally do cold calls to companies in a regional area. The car companies reach out, the auto industry reaches out to us a lot, healthcare industry reaches out, and so we will go and actually talk with people one-on-one. Almost like when you were in high school and you went to college fairs, it's a similar thing. ProMedica might, for their several thousand employees, they might hold an education fair to talk about what's available in the area where people can use their benefit. Because it sounds really strange that you might work for a company that has an educational benefit. Very few employees actually use it. Yeah, it's called free money.
Yeah. I wish I had it
Now,
right now.
it's probably not enough to completely pay for either continuing education or graduate work, or it's probably not enough to pay for it all. But even in those companies where it is, people don't take advantage of it. Some of the other things that we do marketing-wise, anytime we're out somewhere, like you see, we'll hand, we have contact cards, we try to get people's information to get them into our inquiry pool so that we can keep them up to date with any changes, or they can opt out. So of course, we hand out pens. I mean, that's, you know, oh, you can keep the pen when they're done filling out our thing. We have other things, I just grabbed a few things on my way out of the office this afternoon. This is in particular a more focused to non-traditional. And one of the things that I always do is I look at the picture. Marketing and communication is great about making things look really good, but if you have somebody who looks 12 on here, it's not going to make you feel that BGSU really pays attention to non-traditional students. So, and I'm happy to say that the picture of this person is a BGSU graduate. She completed the ATE program, and she works right here in town, and she is a leader in her field. So I don't know if I have enough for everybody. I think I do. We have another one focused on military. Now, there's some surprise things marketing-wise that you would need to know about the military. And one thing is that you do not use pictures of ROTC when you're wanting to attract veterans. Thank you, sir. Yeah, but you do
I
that.
can understand that.
Yeah, because there's a big difference between somebody who is in ROTC and if they complete the program will be commissioned as an officer and then go to basic training and officer school and all of that stuff. Or someone who's had 3 tours in Afghanistan and has definitely been through basic and of course obviously multiple tours, and there's a big difference between the two. And so that was something I had to learn. I didn't know that I had to screen all the pictures to make sure that we didn't have a group picture of a bunch of ROTC. And anybody who's been in the military can instantly tell. I'm not quite that good yet. I kind of know, but I don't trust myself. And this is a piece then that was designed to use with our military folks. Another thing that we can do marketing-wise is utilize resources that are already out there. This is something that we use with military. It could also be used with non-traditional students. I'll pass it around. I don't have very many copies, so but you can feel free to. And this is adapted from Paperclip. So Paperclip Communications is a fantastic resource. So when you're looking for stuff, if you're needing to put together some programming, some materials, definitely check out Paperclip.
That's a brand name.
It is I think it's an organization, nonprofit, website, lots of higher ed materials.
Okay.
In doing our research and stuff, I saw that, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, which was the latest, I found actually a couple of websites that rate BG's military involvement,
Yes.
and actually rate it quite well. But it put the number, I don't know, I think it was 470 students in 2010 or something. Is that kind of a stable number? Does that tend to go up and down, or?
For veteran military.
Veteran, yep, yep.
We're actually closer to 600 now.
Okay.
It does go up and down. We anticipate that number going up and being a little bit less volatile because of the drawdown in the Middle East.
Okay,
And if you've been watching the news at all, you know that our branches of service are all drawing down.
right.
So like the Marines are, I don't even remember the percentages now, but the Marines had built up substantially during the last 10 years.
Mhm.
And they are really, really cutting back. One of the reasons our population of veteran students will be going up is not just because we don't have as many guard units deployed, but also because people who truly thought they were going to be lifers in the service, that was their life career,
Right.
are now being separated, and not of their own choice. And not because of performance issues or anything else, but it's because these branches of service are drawn down. One of the marketing things for military, of course, is these rankings. These are very important. And everybody and their brother-in-law wants to do a military ranking. And of course, you can go to, name your institution, go to their main page, and start looking around and you'll see, you know, we've been named military friendly by GIjobs.com and by Best for Vets and by Stars and Stripes and by, you know, there's starting to get to be a laundry list. So one of the things that we want to do is be selective about those pieces that we choose to do. And I happen to literally get in the mail today one that we're feeling pretty good about this one. And I actually brought the journal that this is about. It's called Military Advanced Education. This journal is in the hands of every education officer in the United States military. As people get ready to separate from the military, their benefits are explained to them, and they're really encouraged to go back to school. Or if they're staying in, the military education officer is talking with them about the importance of continuing education for promotion. So in this day and age, if you're planning to stay in and you don't want to be one of those people downsized, you'd better be pursuing the next degree. If you've got an associate's, you'd better be looking at a bachelor's. If you've got a bachelor's, you'd better be thinking about that master's.
Yes, I took a course last semester, and one of my partners on an assignment is actually stationed down at Dayton Air Force Base.
Yep.
Right, Pat?
Mhm.
So,
We go down to Wright Pat several times a year when they have education fairs, and we're actually, one of the new things I'm working on is looking to see if we can't come up with an exclusive agreement with them to provide the executive MOD and the executive MBA to Wright Pat. So don't know what's gonna happen with that. It's just an idea that I took,
Right.
kind of took it up the chain last week, and we're gonna take a look,
Well,
see what we can do.
what do you think BG is doing differently in terms of getting these students, or, you know, to get
Right, to get some
to
of
get
these.
the
So let me pass-
ratings that you are?
Yeah, let me pass this around. I actually have a list of the things that we do. That's the front and back of a sheet of paper. We are very fortunate. There are a number of things that are best practices for working with and being sort of considered best for vets or veteran friendly. And for example, if your office that is your either your first point of contact or your major single point of contact, POC in military language, point of contact. I had to learn a whole new language. It's unbelievable. And to have folks on that staff who are veterans is one of the best things that you can do. You need to have one area of campus that is steeped in the process, and I call this end-to-end. Not just how to fill out the application, not just what form you fill out to activate your military benefits. You need somebody that can talk with students from end to end. From the minute they show an interest, all the way through graduation and out into the career of their choice. So it's a huge undertaking. We have developed this in, it's not that BG had not done stuff for veterans before the office that I have. We did, but it was one person over here and a little pocket over there and somebody else over here, and nobody knew that anybody else was ever doing anything.
So you think a coordinated effort?
Oh, absolutely critical to have a coordinated, single point of contact. And I'll actually, I was trying to see if, I didn't make copies of this, but if you want to take a look at this, I think that this will help you to see some of the, and that's actually from a presentation that I did to the, for the Chancellor, the Ohio Board of Regents Chancellor last summer. Other benefit of a veteran center. Now, if somebody wants the real deal, then no, we don't have a center, because a center involves not only having staff who know what they're doing, single point of contact, excellent marketing materials, people know that that's where veterans go, not just the veterans who are coming in, but everybody on campus knows that that's where you send veterans. And I think we have developed that over the last several years, but there's also one other component. It needs to be a place that is a community gathering place for all veterans and active duty military. So, we sort of kind of have that, but not really. And part of my really good news in the last couple of weeks is we are going to have one.
Where's it gonna be?
I think it's going to be out in College Park.
Do you?
Yep, I do.
Why wouldn't it be at the Union?
Well, one of the reasons it wouldn't be at the Union is because the vets don't want it to be in the Union.
Oh, that's a good
Because
reason.
most of our veterans get really, really, really annoyed by 18-year-olds acting 12.
They don't wanna be in the Union.
Yeah, so,
I don't even wanna be in the yeah, I won't even in that quad area or whatever.
Yes.
and I'd be
Maybe in
happy
there.
to send you that list.
I
I
would like
actually
walking through there. I'm
was
just like,
about to send it to our lobbyist down in Columbus.
Yeah, it'd be
and I just-
interesting to take a look at
I
it.
just grabbed
Yeah.
it. It should be circulating, I think, coming around to you.
I think it's over on the middle of the table.
Yeah. So we have about 600 vets, and we reach out to them in a variety of ways, including, as you saw, the journal, Military Advanced Education. We're also ranked highly by Best for Vets, which is read by, it's in all of the military hands. This is something that they see on a regular basis while they're in service or when they're retired. We are also one of 250 schools selected by the Obama administration as a school who is utilizing best practices to serve our vets. That does, I mean, it certainly, just because we have that, we have room to go. We, you know, we're developing that transitional support, the academic support. You know, we celebrate when military students graduate. You'll see people with red, white, and blue cords. We provide those to all our graduates. All of those are things that are check marks for best practices, great things to do. But building this center is really going to pull it all together.
Just, when you said it was a community center, does that mean that a vet could go there as a student, but also maybe events that would include family or?
Absolutely. One of the schools, if you want to take a look at someplace that is absolutely doing everything right, they have a nice budget. They also have several military bases right near them. But ASU, Arizona State University, the Pat Tillman Center, if you have not looked at that, that is one of the places to take a look at if you want to really get a feel for what a true, really nice big effort looks like. And actually, let me read a couple of things from, I think that these are comments made by Pat Tillman's wife, I believe. So she was talking about last year when they opened the Pat Tillman Center, Veteran Center at ASU. She said it will provide a single point of contact for ASU veterans and their dependents, bringing together academic and student support services to promote a smooth transition from the military, provide assistance for veterans' benefits, deployments, information and referrals, as well as a place where veterans can gather for study groups and social activities. It is important for university campuses to acknowledge that the transition veterans experience from returning to school is unlike that of most students, and it is truly different. And I can articulate those differences for you if you want more information. They face unique challenges related to financial aid, adjusting to campus life, and face a general lack of understanding of their experience by their classmates. In addition to offering innovative academic support and resources, the Veterans Center will address these needs by providing a place where veterans can find a strong sense of community on campus.
Well, you made me, I'm sorry, you made me think of another question regarding that, because, we're seeing a lot of ads, veterans returning home that are, have all kinds of permanent injuries, both physical and mental. Is that something that will be addressed? And also, because of the scope of BGSU, is that something where that could be integrated into other programs or other programs integrated into the Veterans Center?
Right. And that's one of the reasons why having the vet center out in College Park actually makes so much sense. One of the important things for a vet center is access. Another piece that's important for a vet center is that it provide access to other services, but not like putting a spotlight on the fact that disability services is now in College Park,
Right.
as is the counseling center.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Right. So this puts, okay, so one of the things.
Where is College Park?
College. It's out by the airport.
I haven't needed the mental health center yet.
It's
so-
also where
It's where you went to
I'm
go
coming
to
close to
services.
that though.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
parking
Yeah.
services.
Oh, like
services,
out
police
like past
department.
those tennis
So we've got
courts?
Yeah.
2 commuter parking lots right beside,
Right,
on either
right,
side of
right.
us.
So there's easy
And a
access.
shuttle stop.
Gotcha.
So we've got access.
That's why you
And
kept
we
saying
can
out
very
College Park.
quietly
Where's it at?
assist a veteran student to access other services that they may not want people to know.
Sure.
In particular, if they are currently still serving in the Guard, they don't want, even though they might have benefits through the VA, they are not gonna jeopardize their career in the Guard by letting the Guard know that they're seeking counseling or they're seeking disability services. Many times a veteran will think that if they go to disability services to something as simple as to get extended test taking time because of their PTSD or any other learning difficulty that they might have, they might need extended test time. They don't want anybody to know. They think that it might jeopardize their VA benefit or their current rank or job in the military. So we have to be very careful in how we handle some of this. And we also don't want to make generalizations, and there's a couple of them that are out there. One is that everybody who's been deployed, or even broader, everybody who's ever been in the military has PTSD. Well, it's not the case. So not only is it not the case, but how many people in here have been in a car accident? Any one of us could also have had some level of PTSD or just PTS.
That explains it, Carly.
No, she gets mad at me all the time when I'm in a car. She's like, Carly, you can go. And I was like, no, I'm not going. She's like, Carly, that car's so far. I'm like, no, I'm not going.
That
It's horrifying.
explains it.
Yeah. So, I have a friend that I work closely with at the statewide level who's retired from the Air Force. And one of the things that he will say when he's presenting about military services in higher ed is, and I think that this also holds true for non-traditional students, but in this particular case, he'll say, so how many of you have met at least one veteran? Well, pretty much everybody can raise their hand, right? And he'll say, good, so you've met one veteran. Because the idea is they are as unique and individual as every single other student. There's not, we want to paint this great big broad brushstroke and think everybody's the same. So I hear so many people say, oh, it's great, we're going to have veterans in our classrooms and they're going to be early, they're going to have all their homework done, and they're going to be organized and they're going to be a leader. Okay. Except that it's not true. Not every single veteran has that exact skill set. That is what people maybe strive for in the military, but not everybody is, just because you were in the service and you were forced to be up at 5 a.m. doesn't mean that you continue to do that. Some do. Some don't. So we can't do these big, broad brushstrokes. And that's part of what we will go around campus and do veteran awareness or military awareness training to try to help faculty and staff see that, you know, that this is a population that does have special needs. There are things we do need to be aware of, but you know, they're a population much like many other populations, and they cross over like crazy. Circling back to finish up with marketing things, one of the things that we try to do is come up with unique ways to communicate. So if we have talked to a student in any way, shape, form, or fashion, transfer visit day, a veterans event, whatever, and if they haven't applied, then we will send them a postcard. So we have postcards that go out. And then I would like to get an opinion from you guys. And I won't remember your names after I leave, so it's okay to tell me exactly what you think. Okay, so how many people remember view books? And getting truckloads of them when you were trying to decide where you were going to college?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you pretty much needed a dump truck to back up to take away all the stuff. And you got view books like crazy, right? And lots of other stuff. So BGSU this year did not have a traditional view book. This is the view book. So it is a box that opens up, and you literally put a selection of these then little, these cool little, well, maybe I'll get one in my hand. So this happens to say ready to apply. It's the last thing in there, so that by the time you get to this one, are you ready to apply? Well, okay, here's how you do that. So,
It's a selection of web pages.
and I think it is a bunch of different, yeah. So,
I didn't mean that in a disparaging manner, I mean, just
Right.
mean that that's what, you know,
That's what it
people
looks
are used to looking at web pages, and rather than giving them a catalog, you're giving them web
page
pages.
at a time. So, for example, the first one here is vital stats. Well, that's basically fact book when you click on a web page. If you want to know how big's the school, is it a 4-year school, does it have grad programs, you know, is it a 2-year school, whatever. So this is a really, I mean, this is really changing the idea of a view book. So now the thing that, a reason I brought this, and I think I have some different selections of things here. And there is a non-traditional one, there is a veteran one. Of course, I don't think I have that with me. But in any case, you'll get a flavor. After you've looked at this, I would love to know what you guys think, because this is very different. Mailing out a view book, I think it cost about 79 cents maybe. And of course, you put it up as a PDF online and so forth. And if you go to our website, you can see our view book, the old view book for transfer students, and you can see a view book for veterans and a view book for non-traditional. They're last year's. And the links are still up on my page. But it was much like the advanced military education, you know, that journal over there. It's, you know, it was similar in size and shape. So I'm real curious to see what you guys think about this, so be sure and let me know. And the idea is that you can tailor it to the student. So if they're a transfer student, you're not gonna put in anything about the first year scholarships because they don't qualify for that. If it's somebody who's interested in, you know they're interested in a health field, you're gonna put in stuff about a health field, but you might not put others. So, so very, very interesting piece there in the marketing piece.
Why did they decide to do that?
I think that the traditional view book has been around for a very, very long time, and there's been, not just here, but at many institutions, the thought that the view book doesn't match today's traditional age student. And frankly, for a transfer student, they would want us to put stuff in, about cost. And when you put in cost, financial aid says you have to put in full cost of attendance, which includes residence life and dining and all of that stuff, which if somebody's not paying attention to that, somebody's gonna look and think that they have to spend $10,000 a semester to come to BG. When in reality, if you're a transfer student coming in with 60 or more hours, you are not required to live on campus. Your tuition is more like $5,500. There's a big difference there. And transfer students think about five things, but the number one thing that they want to know is how much is it going to cost? That is the number one question. Number two, nope.
Really?
Number
That's
two,
what I got.
are my courses going to transfer? Number three, how long is it going to take me to graduate? That's what they want to know. Cost? Are my credits going to transfer, and how long is it going to take me to graduate? And then they might ask if we actually have their major.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah, because they'll usually match a major if they really want to come here. Okay, so did I hit some stuff on marketing? Do you want more on marketing?
Not a lot.
I'd be more insights I can go.
Scott?
I have a question on transfer students.
Okay.
Have you, kind of recognized what BGSU's biggest competitors are for bringing in transfer students? Like where are you getting them from, and then who's stealing possible BGSU future?
Sure. Transfer students is another whole really, we could spend hours on it, just like we could spend hours on non-traditional or
Yeah.
veterans. There have been a lot of changes in what I would call the transfer world, transfer market, in the last few years. So I would say 5 to 7 years ago, when we very first took a full-time BGSU employee and said, we want you to do transfer advising at Owens Community College, our largest transfer institution. And so she was literally housed up there. Most of her 40-hour work week was spent up there, getting to know all the Owens programs, how they transferred here. Really a very effective tool for developing efficient, effective, seamless transferability. And she was the only person there doing that. And within 6 months, UT was there. And now they have an entire transfer center. There are places there that I'm gonna guess maybe some of you have never even heard of, like Grand Canyon University. Does anybody know Grand Canyon University?
I've seen commercials.
I've seen commercials.
Online.
They are both face-to-face, physical on the ground in Arizona. But of course, the reason that they're at Owens is they're trying to get students into transfer degree completion programs. We have places showing up that I literally have to go and Google them because I have not heard of them before. So where we had almost no one, and then, the usual suspects, UT, Lords, okay, that makes sense. When OU came, we thought that was a little weird. They're way on the other side of the state, but they were trying to grow a couple online degree completion programs that were technical in nature. Okay, that made some sense. But now, Phoenix actually has people face-to-face on the ground. The list is ever-changing, ever-growing, places we've never heard of, out of the Midwest, out of the East Coast, Indiana Wesleyan. So we've got people crossing state lines. We've got people crossing state lines and being given permission from the Board of Regents to set up storefronts.
Isn't it more, if you transfer into an out-of-state institution, isn't it a lot more expensive to go to?
It depends. Because one of the things that a lot of schools are doing to address the need, the true need to have transfer students and adult learners, is they're either waiving or substantially reducing out-of-state tuition. And most online degree completion programs have either no out-of-state fee or nominal
Gotcha.
out-of-state fee.
So, that's only if you're a transfer student, or like you're
It-
a
it- Each institution and/or their state governing body makes that decision. At BGSU, we have what's called BG Success for out-of-state students who are coming here taking face-to-face classes. And if they qualify for that, that cuts their out-of-state fee in half. And that's for first year or transfer. Our degree completion programs, we have 5 of them, undergrad, and those, the out-of-state fee is $15 a credit hour. So, nominal.
Do they get from Phoenix, I was reading some material about Phoenix and some others, and how expensive they are,
Yes.
and how students graduate from their institutions with huge debt, with minimal skills, documented minimal skills,
Right.
and therefore not a lot of job opportunity.
Right.
Do these students get any of that information?
It depends on how savvy the student is.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that the Obama administration is working very hard to address, both for veterans, but also for students in general, and particularly with the for-profit institutions. And you'll see that the big push in ads from Phoenix right now is that, yes, we know we're expensive, but if you qualify, we have a $10,000 scholarship.
It doesn't begin to cover.
Yeah. So, but there are some predatory, I don't know how you say that word, practices out there, and if you ever, if your gut instinct is telling you that an institution's sounding too good to be true, then start really researching them, either for yourself or a family member, whatever, because there are a lot of very, very shady operations. But accrediting bodies and Obama administration definitely trying to address that.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed, and I don't mean to turn this into a general discussion, but we've had this discussion. Just putting things online is not necessarily a good thing.
Yes.
You lose, there are certain aspects of the class that you lose. Also, to be an online teacher requires probably as much or more time than to be a face-to-face teacher.
Right.
And you have to be careful how you phrase things. So going back to your point about Phoenix, they give you a piece of paper, whoop-de-doo. Getting the rigor to go along with an online course is difficult.
They used to be one of those correspondence schools.
Oh, Phoenix did?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when I just have to throw this in, when I was a graduate student, my aunt was going to school, the University of Phoenix. She lived in Salt Lake City. And so she thought this was great because the University of Phoenix was in Phoenix, which was in the West. So she was all excited about that, and she was getting her accounting degree. And she did. It took her a long time, and she was working and whatever. She went to when family moved to Phoenix, she went to see the University of Phoenix, and it was an office building. And she was appalled because she had no idea that it wasn't a real school. And then the internet hit, and she figured it all out. So when they built the University of Phoenix Stadium, where they hold the Fiesta Bowl and BCS championships and all that kind of stuff, she goes, what do they need? They don't have a team, And by then she was like 70 years old, and she'd figured out how much she had been taken. But she was in correspondence school, whole different ballgame
Right.
than
Right.
online learning.
Right.
It was for a small group of people at the time.
Right. One of the things that we, here at BG, as I said, we have 5 degree completion programs. So you notice I said degree completion programs. We have no programs undergraduate that you can start with course 1, you've never had anything else before, and do an entire degree program online, undergraduate level. We do not have that. There is a market for that. We don't have it. And at this point in time, the degree completion part is really the part that we're looking at very strongly in growing that. The 5 that we have are an RN to BSN. So in other words, somebody who's gone to a 2-year school or a nursing school, they're a registered nurse, but they want to get their BSN, their Bachelor of Nursing Science. So we have that as a degree completion program. Probably the broadest degree that we have is called BLS, Bachelor of Liberal Studies. And this one requires, and this was really kind of cool, because when you think about all the populations that we're talking about tonight, that non-traditional person who's moved around the country and been to 3 different schools and had 4 different majors, and their job says, you will not be promoted, and in fact, your job will be gone. You have 2 years to get a bachelor's degree or you're done. That person's like, wow, what am I gonna do? Well, the BLS is typically a really good fit for that person. You need 100 hours of classes from all the disciplines that are in arts and sciences. You have to have 122 hours to graduate. So if you dabbled your toe in the water of being a business major or a music major for a little bit, you got a few courses here still that we could count towards that 122. Most of the general education requirements are from arts and science disciplines. And of course, if you're early enough in pursuing that program, we can, of course, help guide someone to do that. So that's probably the broadest. We also have something called fire administration, which is for students who are actively working in fire, EMT, that kind of stuff. A lot of our veterans also fit this. Let's see, what am I leaving out? Then there's 2 in the College of Technology, and it changed its name, College of Technology, Architecture, and Engineering Technology or something. It's a great big long name now, but the College of Technology has 2. One called Learning Design, which is designed to build off of an applied associate's degree. So when you think about transfer students, if you go to a community college, you can get an Associate of Arts or an Associate of Science, and that's usually a pretty clean transfer path to a bachelor's degree. But most people who go to community colleges go there to get an applied associate degree. So applied health sciences, applied business management, applied welding, no. Well, you can get an associate degree in welding, but I was actually kind of joking about that. So you don't have all of those things that are a traditional pathway to a bachelor's degree. So typically what will happen to a student with an applied degree is they transfer to a 4-year school and they're thinking, those commercials, start here, 2 + 2, earn your bachelor's degree. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not 2 + 2. It's really 3 + 3, and that's on a good day. And if you haven't applied, you're looking at probably 3 years full-time to get a bachelor's degree. Now, how frustrating is that if you already have an associate degree? So what we're looking at is trying to have departments where we can have them build degree completion programs that build off of a technical associate degree. And these 2 programs out in the College of Technology do that. So learning design and quality systems are those 2 out there.
Is quality systems hardware, software, network?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where, we all kind of think we're pretty well educated, right? we ought to be able to figure out what things are. Well, quality systems, I had to go look it up because it's actually about things called Kaizen, Lean Sigma 6, Sigma 6. There's a few others. You were nodding your head. What are some of the other?
I came from 30 years in business and
Right.
I've heard all the buzzwords, there's ISO.
I think back in the day, TQM probably, but
Yeah.
if we'd have done it back in the day, would have.
Total quality management. and then-
Management by walking around.
Any of the metric systems.
Right.
Metrics.
So the idea here is for, it's leadership, it's effective, it's, a little bit of supply chain, only on the management side, so, and we have a lot of people, this is a very, very, very hot area of study right now. So, so that's an area, hopefully, of growth for us as the College of Technology is searching for a new dean. We hope to be able to grow this. And people coming out of the military, this is something they have trained in, if they've been leading at all in the military, so. Okay, let's talk a little bit about a few things that impact all of these populations that we've been talking about that I haven't touched on. So let's talk about prior learning assessment. Anybody run across that in their research that they did? Okay. This, I think probably, original conversations about this would start more with the adult learner. So the idea that someone has lived life, they're 40-something years old, they should have learned some things in that time, and it should count for something in a college degree.
All anybody wanted to see from me was, do you have a piece of paper? Did you take this? Did you take that? No one wanted to give me a test. And boy, did that tick me off. Everybody they wanted certificates of completion, certificates of, well, do you have any certificates? No. I worked for small companies for 30 years. Well, can you prove it? No. You know what I mean?
Oh, I do. I
Maddening.
work with this a lot. I've got some really stories that just, you can't understand why, but anyway.
I was just gonna say, that probably is very frustrating, I'm thinking bad for you. But,
Could you be any more condescending?
No, I am being serious, that's really unfortunate for you. I do think that that's unfair for you.
No one
I was just gonna
understands
say,
me.
the stuff that I found was that they're trying, overall, nationally, they try to, take any experience that you have, military or otherwise, if you're a non-traditional student, and they try to give you credit for that. Now, apparently Steve did not have that kind of luck.
Well, I think it's a really, really, and I'm glad you found that, and I'm not sure where you looked. Did you go to the Kale website or?
I don't remember exactly where I found it, but.
Okay. CAEL, and there's a lot of resources there. There's also resources on another site that's ACE, ACE.
I think
It might have been on ACE's
Yeah.
site, because that's a big thing that they're doing, is trying to develop some kind of comprehensive, consistent rubrics for how to bring all this in. So, okay, so here's some examples of when it works and it doesn't work. Somebody's been in the military and they're a pilot. They went to flight school, they've been flying helicopters. Okay, they come to BG and they say, I've got all these credits from the military, I've got all this experience. And so I say, great, okay. Okay, so just show me your DD 214, no problem, we'll give you credit for flight school. What's your major? Philosophy. Okay, so I could bring in 36 credit hours of military training, which will have absolutely no help whatsoever to a philosophy degree. And in fact, bringing in those 36 hours will actually hurt that philosophy major, because it would put that person at a higher number of credits towards completion, which totally screws up financial aid, because they have something called the 150% rule. So there's an example of it wouldn't work. Obviously, if that person was coming in to be a pilot, it would be of tremendous advantage. So one of the things that was unfortunate in the example that Steve is using is that if someone can demonstrate that they have achieved the learning outcomes through multiple methods, be that a portfolio, be that credit by exam, credit by validation, teach a seminar, write a reflective essay. I mean, there are ways to do this. But there's a lot of old school resistance to any of that, because on the other hand, you've got people who feel like a college degree needs to have a certain set of rigor, and I know if you take my class, you've got my rigor. And what we're trying to say is, we agree with you on your rigor, but what if somebody can demonstrate they've already achieved the learning outcomes? So in other words, prior learning assessment cannot be, I have lived 45 years, therefore I should get credit for having breathed. No. But what you should get credit for is any learning outcomes that truly equate to the outcomes of a college level class. Okay, example. Somebody comes in who's been an office manager for 10 years, and she has done the books, or he has done the books for the office, or, you know, family company, whatever the case may be, and they want credit for accounting 1 and 2. They've done QuickBooks. Do you think they should get credit for accounting 1 and 2?
There's a lot of other conceptual things
Yeah.
that you understand
Right.
outside of school.
Why?
Which is really, really, I hate delivering that news, because I am quite sure that there are some really good basic bookkeeping concepts that they have mastered, that the general person taking accounting 1 and 2 probably doesn't master. But you know, it's that difference in applied skills versus all the theory and the theoretical concepts and all that. But this is where portfolio review can come in, because maybe we can give credit for some other practicums and things that might help count towards that 122 hours. But it takes a lot of effort and work on both the student coming in and someone at a university or college to work with them to understand the scope of what someone might have done. You have to ask probing questions. You know, it's pretty interesting.
Well, I know in my case, when I finally arrived here, and actually what I was talking about occurred at UT back in the year 2000, or actually 1999. When I was one of those that had a smattering of undergrad, and I went back to complete my undergrad degree. But when I came here, at least I was given the opportunity in a couple of cases to test out by taking, you know, for specific courses. Do you work with that a lot?
Yes, absolutely do. Part of the way that I look at this, and whether it's a veteran student, a returning student, you know, somebody that's never been to college before, whatever, and they have I think of this as a comprehensive package, because there are little pieces of things that can happen along the way. It's not just one thing. And so testing out is certainly one. The example I used of somebody who's done the family business books or whatever, and they have an expertise in QuickBooks, I would say to that person, let's see if we can't get someone to give you a sample exam for that has the things that you should know at the end of this class.
Right.
Let's give you a sample exam. You take it home, go through it, and see if you can answer most of this. Then by all means, let's move forward with. If you look at this and it looks like Greek, I suggest you start at the beginning. The same thing with CLEP exams. Anybody familiar with CLEP? This is part of this comprehensive package that I would have said to you, let's look at CLEP. Do you have any general education requirements that you still need let's see what's out there in CLEP. I even do this with traditional age students who want to get through, for whatever reason, they want to fly through really fast, they can't wait to get out there and be in the workforce. Or maybe they're just trying to keep their student loan debt down. So we look at CLEP. If you're a total complete science geek and you watch all the Discovery Channel science shows, then let's look at CLEP and see if, go out, take the sample exams for college level examination program, which by the way was originally developed for the military because they felt bad for people being stationed, like in Antarctica and stuff, so correspondence type stuff. And then whenever they got back to a base that had a testing center, then they would take the test for CLEP. It's a great way to demonstrate foreign language proficiency. If you live someplace and you need a foreign language credit, use CLEP. There are a couple of little inside tips I'll give you right now, that the literature courses for exams for CLEP, if you take the American Lit and the Brit Lit, each exam is worth 6 credit hours, 2 courses. So if your gen ed requires that you have 2 arts and humanities classes, 6 credit hours, you take the American Lit exam and pass it, bam, 6 credit hours, gen ed done in that area. And not that I'm not saying people shouldn't take the gen eds and experience the depth and breadth of all the courses there are. Personally, I would take the classes, but sometimes people don't have time. Then we've talked about credit by exam, which is a department. Maybe you did all kinds of math work in your job. And you get here and somebody tells you you have to take a quantitative literacy course. You're like, are you kidding me? I did all the stats and analysis and everything. So what I would say in that case is, because there isn't a CLEP exam, call up the math department, set up for you to do credit by exam.
Well, I was supposed to take a financial literacy course. My wife's vice president of the bank, blah, blah, blah. And so they let me go over and I did take the exam and I did pass it.
Right.
So and there were a few others that I probably, had I needed other content courses, I probably could have arranged to get out of, but.
Yeah, so let's talk about another one, credit by validation. Now this was a new one to me until about, 5 or 6 years ago. I didn't know about this one. And this is a process because when you transfer to BGSU, your credits have to be from a regionally accredited institution. So let's think about that. You have been going to school at Stotzenberger up in Maumee, and you decide, you know what, I'm really good at this student thing, and I was doing this medical transcription aid, whatever, but now I think I want to get a bachelor's degree, so I'm going to transfer to Bowling Green. Stotzenberger is not a regionally accredited institution. Their credits do not transfer.
What does it mean to be a regional credit? Is that like North Central?
Yeah, that's North
Okay.
Central, that's SAC, that's New England, whatever the,
Right.
yeah.
But Davis would transfer, could
Davis-
possibly
Davis
transfer.
could now possibly transfer because they have gone through the process to become regionally accredited.
I remember
Yes.
that.
Yeah,
What about Brown Maggie?
no. So, for example, let's say someone has taken an accounting class at Brown Mackey. And we look at the syllabi and we think, they've covered pretty much the same stuff that would be covered in accounting 1 here. I've not seen the syllabus, so I don't know if that's the case, but let's use that as our example. So what we would do in that case would be to have the student provide the syllabus, textbook if possible, maybe even sample assignments, sample tests if we could. We would show that to a faculty member to see if that faculty member could look through and say, oh yes, this is everything that we would be covering and the student got a B in it. So we're going to give credit by validation. They